In this video, I'm going to give you another example of a VC produced anti-personnel mine. This is a copy of a Soviet mine that was first deployed during World War II. The Soviet version was the POMZ in Vietnam. The VC versions were just called VC stake mines. I have no doubt that some of the engineers would just call them VC POMZs. This is a picture of an actual VC manufactured stake mine that's in a museum. So what they did with theirs, they used a piece of bamboo as the stake, where on the Soviet ones it was this wooden stake. You have the same or similar style of a cast iron body or head, and it used a POMZ series fuse, same as the Soviet designed mines. There were three versions of the POMZ that the Soviets produced. The POMZ and the POMZ-2. POMZ was produced during World War II. The POMZ-2 came out either late in World War II or soon after. I couldn't find an actual deployment date on that. No one is sure. Those two mines are, the differences in them has to do with the general contours of the warhead or the head. They both have a unthreaded, just smooth cap well or shaft here at the top of the warhead. The POMZ-2 mic or POMZ-2M, they improved that by threading it. The reason they did that is a problem that they encountered. If the detonator and fuse unit were not inserted into the explosive charge well enough, it can fall out of the mine, or someone could hit that tripwire and literally pull the firing device, the fuse unit, right out of the mine without setting it off. So they made the improvement of threading the cap well. I got a feeling the VC versions were just smooth cap wells. I highly doubted that they threaded them. This mine is a very simple construction. It has been copied all over former COM bloc countries and is still being manufactured today. The Germans copied it during World War II. Their version, I came across a name for it, of a stock mine. The warhead or grenade was made out of concrete, and bits of metal shrapnel was embedded inside the concrete. Now, the basic components of this mine, it is extremely crude. You just have the wooden stake, or with the VC, the bamboo stake, the cast iron head, the explosive charge, which was TNT, of a weight of around 75 grams or 2.6 ounces, the detonator unit, and the POMZ series fuse. Now, I will put a link to a video in the description. I think the video is in Finnish. It was made in Finland, I believe, showing how to assemble this, from getting it in the crate to putting it together and placing it. But generally how it looks, you get a crate that has the stakes and the heads in it. The explosive charge, the fuse, and the detonators are separate. They come in separate boxes. You take your cast iron head, you insert the explosive charge inside. You then insert the stake into the open bottom of the cast iron head. You would assemble your detonator and POMZ series fuse, and when you're going to put the mine in, you would insert it in through the cap well in the top. You would then put your stake in the ground. You would go out. You would run other stakes or tie off the trees, fence posts, whatever your anchor point's going to be. Run that tripwire back to the fuse, tie it into the pull ring, and the mine is essentially armed. I'm not sure if there was a secondary safety pin on the MOV series fuses. I'm not sure on that. I really do not know. But there seems to be two main types of the MOV series fuse that were used on the POMZ and its derivatives like the VC stake mine. One is a pole release fuse and the other is a pole fuse. On the pole fuse, like on here, you have the pin that's coming through the side of the body. There is a pole ring on it. The tripwire is attached to that pole ring. When the tripwire is pulled, it removes the pin from the fuse body. The striker goes down, detonating the mine. On the pole release, the pole ring would be on the top of the striker, and the pole ring would come to that. The target would hit that tripwire, break it, and then the striker would go down in setting off the detonator, setting off the blasting cat and detonating the mine. Now, some of the technical details on it, the dimensions. The diameter of the cast iron head is 60 millimeters, around 2.36 inches. Now, when I did a breakdown on the general thickness of the sides of the cast iron head, I came to around a ½ inch. It's not very thick. There is no iron plug down here at the bottom. It's just, the bottom is just the stake. Now, so because of that, you don't want the cast iron body too thick then. Because in that case, you're just going to turn this into a rocket and you're going to shoot it off the stake into orbit. So you want this fairly thin, but you want it thick enough that it's still going to produce some damage when the fragments form and hit their target. The height of the cast iron case is 5 inches. The average height of the stake is 12 inches, but I know they make them longer than that because I've seen some for mines that were found in Bosnia that were around 2 foot in length, so around 24 inches in length. The total weight of the mine is around 5 pounds. Now, a common tactic, I'll just mention this quick here, that the VC would do when they would put in the stake mines, they would put a hand grenade right next to the mine with the safety lever on the grenade right next to the stake. Now, the hand grenade they used was typically an F1 Soviet grenade, if I remember correctly. And it would be one with a very short fuse, if not instantaneous fuse. The reason they did that is the American GIs and the ARVNs, typically, they would cut that tripwire and then they would pull the mine out of the ground. Well, they would have their little anti-handling device here on some of them that as you pull the mine out of the ground, that grenade's going to detonate soon after and it's going to kill or at least seriously injure that either ARVN soldier or US soldier that removed the mine without checking it first. Now, I will put a couple links to a couple videos in the description on how these cast iron bodies were probably produced. One video is from New Zealand in World War II showing how they cast British Mills bomb grenades, which would be similar in construction to the cast iron head on these stake mines. I will also post a link to a video on making sand cores for making this hollow cavity in the castings when they're made. I do not know how the VC made the cavity inside these cast iron heads and other cast iron grenade bodies and mine bodies that they made. I highly suspect that these cast iron casings were manufactured in the bigger cities, not out in the country, not out in the jungles, because of what you would have to do to make that cavity. Now, from what I've seen on the one video on making the cavities, the material used to make those cores is the same as the material that the mold is made from. So if you're using a sand mold, you're using a sand core. Now, in order to get that sand core, you had to mix it with a silicate type solution, and it would harden by exposure to carbon dioxide. And I highly doubt the VC were hauling around large containers of that silicate type solution and large cylinders of carbon dioxide in a jungle just to make these cast iron heads. That's why I think they were probably manufactured in the cities. Now, is it possible there's an older technology for making these cavities? Yes. I have no idea how they did hollow core castings during the 1800s. If anyone has an idea how they could have done something like this in a jungle, please let me know in the comments section. This is a conundrum I've been trying to wrap my head around for about a week now. I keep looking up different ways on how this could have been done, and all it's done is told me how it probably wasn't done. And I keep coming back to they probably did it using a sand core. Now, when they would make their molds, and I did this when I was in high school, but you know, that was a couple decades ago. It was a long time ago. You would have your dummy of whatever you're trying to produce. That dummy would be in two halves, a top half and a bottom half. When you made your mold, you would have a top half and a bottom half. So you'd use half of it to make your bottom for your casting. Your other piece would make the top of your casting, your cavity in here so that you could do the casting, and then you would make a channel that the metal would be poured into, and also that there would be another channel that would allow the air to escape as you're filling the cavity with the hot metal when you're doing the casting. And then balanced inside the cavities would be your core to make your hollow cavity inside your casting. Now it takes, I came across like 3 to 4 hours for cast iron to cool down enough that you can break apart your molds and then clean the cavities out and that stuff. You can handle it without burning yourself, and then you can cut off this little metal tube here that would have been created during the casting process, and then also probably drill the hole for your fuse well. It's a very crude mine. It's a very simple mine. It is essentially just a hand grenade on a stick. That's really all it is. So this is one of those simple mines that I think the VC probably did copy. I don't know if they were given plans for it or if they just got, when they were given some of the actual manufactured ones from the Chinese, which would have been a type 58 or type 59 stake mine, or if they were given Soviet POMZ mines, they then looked at it and tried to figure out how to copy themselves in whatever production facilities they had available. But as this example shows here, they did manufacture some of their own, and some of them were captured, and some of them ended up in museums, like this one. Now, do not manufacture this and emplace it yourself unless it is a without rule of law situation or an invasion of the country, or you know, you're defending yourself against some very out of this world type threat, something that's way beyond normal. Because Just like with any booby trap or landmine, if you produce it yourself and you emplace it yourself and society has not broken apart, you are violating multiple laws. And when you get caught, I'm not going to say if, but when you get caught, you're going to go to prison for an extremely long time. But here you go. Another basic homemade weapon that was employed by the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War. And this is still being manufactured and employed around the world, all over the place. There are many variants of this. In Yugoslavia, you had the PMR-1 and the PMR-2 series. Vietnam still manufactures it under the MBV-78A1. Czechoslovakia had their version of it, which is being used by the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. I know I've seen pictures of these coming on plastic stakes, metal stakes. I've seen them make smooth bodies that are attached to a piece of rebar in the ground that are essentially a POMZ, just a little bit different. You know, they've been adapted all over the world with whatever techniques they had available, whatever materials were available. So if you got the capabilities to do this and you're a reenactor and you're trying to do your little display on what U.S. troops encountered during the Vietnam War, well, now you got somewhat of an idea, and maybe you can manufacture a few of these to add to your collection. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot militia movements, always remember, essayons.